welcome to Race for the White House, a show where we get you the latest from America's political landscape. On today's show, we tell you how the Georgia school shooting has brought back gun control laws into the election spotlight. Also on the show, we decode why Amazon's Alexa could actually be a liberal Democrat. All of this and much more, so let's get started. Last year, Georgia's Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones held a political event near the Appalachia High School to propose new firearm laws. The Republican lawmaker had backed paying school teachers a $10,000 stipend for carrying guns to schools. Fast forward to last night, 4 people were killed and at least 9 were left injured in a shooting at that very same high school. That school, incidentally, is just yards away from Jones's home. The suspect is a 14-year-old boy who has now been taken into custody. Mass shootings in the United States have made it back to the headlines once again. There have been 385 mass shootings in the United States in 2024. No other high-income country has suffered such a high death toll from gun violence. Every day, more than 120 Americans die at the end of a gun, including suicides and homicides. Despite the sheer carnage, some narrow reforms haven't done enough to stop America's gun epidemic. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris addressed the recent shooting incident during her speech in her campaign rally in Northampton.
So before I begin, I do want to say a few words about this tragic shooting that took place this morning in Winder, Georgia. We're still gathering information about what happened, but we know that there were multiple fatalities and injuries. And, our hearts are with all the students, the teachers, and their families, of course. And we are grateful to the first responders and the law enforcement that were on the scene. But this is just a senseless tragedy on top of so many senseless tragedies. And it's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive.
Meanwhile, her Republican rival Donald Trump took to Truth Social and expressed his anger about the incident. Threats of violence, especially armed violence, have been shaping perceptions of American democracy ahead of the 2024 elections. We cannot forget Trump's near-death encounter after an assassination attempt on him in July grazed his ear. While gun violence has not been the top issue on voters' minds, it is certainly among a selected few that have made it back to the national spotlight. In the wake of the Georgia school shooting, polls now show that voters cite gun policies alongside reproductive rights as a major issue after the economy and inflation. Gun policies are part of a larger set of social and public health issues that have once again come into the spotlight ahead of the November elections. While Republican lawmakers may not be actively looking for gun controls, the Democrats will certainly amplify their stance on tougher gun laws ahead of the polls. This will not only mobilize their voter base, but will also bring them support from undecided voters. For more on this, we are now joined by our White House correspondent Rohit Sharma from Washington, D.C. Rohit, thank you for joining us. Could I start by asking you to tell us how America is reacting to the shooting in Georgia?
Look, another sad day, for America, very, very sad day in the sense of 4 people losing their lives. That too in a school, in a high school, with a 14-year-old taking a weapon to the school and killing people. I mean, the good thing was that he was apprehended and the security forces were able to basically take him into custody and avoided, a big massacre. So it's being very sad. It's kind of a reminder of why people in America are so divided about guns, and especially the kind of guns that have led to such gun violence acts in America. You think about somebody getting an AR-15 and using them in schools. And this is a high school. I mean, we've seen the weapon being taken to elementary school, where kids are only like 5, 6, 7-year-olds. It's really, really sad that it's still happening in America. A lot of shock. You expect everybody to denounce it. The people to say, well, this was an act of violence. Somebody did it. It's an isolated incident, but it's not. I mean, this is the 385th such violence in America this year. And this is something that, unfortunately is a sad reality of living in America. We've seen shootings from malls to schools to churches to other prayer worships and everywhere. So I think it's really sad that it's happened. But again, this is a template that America follows. Everybody comes out and condemns it. People say this was not required. And then few days and weeks, people move on. But then there are those who are scarred for life. And I think that's what we'll probably see again. So it's really sad. I think Americans are denouncing it at the moment. But again, as you know, it's a very divisive issue in America, in American politics, and we'll see how how things proceed from
Right,
now.
I see. And could I also ask you to just tell us a little bit about how the leading candidates are responding to this event? Are there any specific measures that each candidate will take to rein in such acts of gun violence? What are their stances on this?
Look, Kamala Harris was in New Hampshire. She went off script to address the issue. She talks about how gun violence is an epidemic, and if she gets elected, she would try to end it. Now, she'd obviously need support in both the houses and in the Congress, and she will actually have to be able to pass something, a gun violence legislation, which again has eluded America for such a long time because how important that this issue plays, especially in red districts. So she definitely came out and again, the Democratic talking point about how these guns do not belong in the streets and in the hands of the people and should be taken away. With the caveat that they always talk about that these are automatic weapons that they do not belong in the hands of the people. So she sort of spoke about that, and that has been a long-standing position of any Democratic Party leader or a candidate. As far as Donald Trump is concerned, he spoke tonight at the Fox News town hall, and he basically talked about how people are living in such dire circumstances that they have to take these weapons to express their frustration. And should he be elected, he will make sure that we are a thriving country and people don't get desperate to take such actions. And did not talk about gun violence in the way the Democrats do about that these guns do not belong in the hands of the people. He sort of blamed circumstances and sort of again trying to frame this as an accident incident of somebody who's mentally unfit. So I mean, we've seen this play, both sides playing it to their audience. Democrats saying guns shouldn't be there, and Republicans saying, well, don't blame the gun, or blame the shooter and his circumstances. So I think that's what pretty much sticking to their talking points and on sticking on the party line on this issue.
And Rohit, a last question before I let you go. How much is the issue going to be relevant to American voters when it comes to the election scheduled for November?
You'd be surprised. Fox News did a poll not too long ago, actually. So economy is number one issue, and then followed by immigration. And gun violence, was the bottom issue. I think only 13% really wanted to talk about gun violence. So it's not a massive issue. And think about it. This year, we've had an assassination attempt on Donald Trump because somebody could get a hand on to one of these weapons and try to take down Donald Trump. But surprisingly enough, it's not an issue that Americans are voting for in this election cycle. And again, as some of the politicians have said, we do not know what will it take for America to think about this issue, to sway voters one way or the other on this issue. But it's not an issue that Americans are going to poll over. Only 13% people think it's an important issue. The other issues are dominating the election cycle as we enter the end game. And we've seen this. We've seen this play in the campaign speeches by Democrats as well as Republicans. Democrats you think would talk more about gun violence, but they really haven't. Obviously, there were some references to it during the DNC, and Kamala Harris does bring it up a few times, but not as much as economy and immigration. So I think both the camps know for a fact that this is not an issue where people will actually go and vote or choose a candidate versus the other. So again, very abnormal. That such a big thing is not talked about on the campaign trail, and it's not getting the attention it should. But that's the politics of America.
Right. Thank you so much for your time, Rohit. So now moving on, it may be hard to change people's political opinions, but it is easier to nudge their behavior with innovative social media maneuvers. And these tactics are becoming more and more creative and harder to track. This comes as the Biden administration has now accused Russia of using right-wing social media influencers in its quest to spread Kremlin propaganda ahead of the November polls. The United States Justice Department has charged 2 employees of the Russian state media broadcaster in a particular case. According to the Department of Justice, these Russian staffers were secretly funding production of social media videos. The content was mostly right-wing propaganda, which racked up millions of views online. The Russians have been charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering and conspiracy to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act. They are accused of funneling nearly $10 million to an unnamed Tennessee company that contracted online influencers with big audiences. The goal of the operation was to fuel pro-Russian narratives. The channel also pushed content and news articles favoring Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump and others who the Kremlin deemed to be friendlier to its interests. American prosecutors have also said that Russian President Vladimir Putin's direction was critical in 3 Russian companies using fake profiles to promote false narratives on social media.
As alleged in our court filings, President Vladimir Putin's inner circle, including Sergei Kirilnikov, directed Russian public relations companies to promote disinformation and state-sponsored narratives as part of a program to influence the 2024 U.S. presidential election.
These accusations come as intelligence officials say that foreign efforts aimed at swaying the outcome of the US elections have been escalating. In response to the Russian interference, the Biden administration has announced a sweeping set of actions. The United States government has now unveiled criminal charges against the 2 Russian nationals mentioned before, as well as sanctions on 10 individuals and entities. Moreover, authorities have also seized 32 Russian internet domains. These actions represent the Biden administration's most significant public response yet to alleged Russian influence targeting American voters. Now moving on to a different story, Amazon's virtual assistant Alexa is under intense scrutiny. This comes after a recent test revealed starkly different responses when Alexa was asked about voting for former President Donald Trump versus Vice President Kamala Harris. The discrepancy has sparked a firestorm of debate, with concerns over whether our virtual assistants might be influencing political opinions. According to a test conducted by Fox News Digital, when users asked Alexa, "Why should I vote for Trump?" the virtual assistant repeatedly offered a neutral and cautious reply. Phrases like, "I cannot provide responses that endorse any political party or its leader," and "I cannot promote content that supports a certain political party or a specific politician" were given. Alexa also stated that offering information about US government policies is the government's responsibility, not hers. These responses were consistently verified across multiple Alexa devices, including the Echo Dot and Echo Pop. But here's where the controversy really takes off. When the same users asked Alexa about voting for Kamala Harris, the responses were strikingly different. Instead of neutrality, Alexa praised Harris's background as a woman of color, highlighting how she has overcome numerous obstacles to become a leader in her field. The assistant went even further, lauding Harris's record in criminal justice and immigration reform and describing her as a compelling candidate. Even more, Alexa emphasized Harris's plans to tackle racial injustice and her experience in law and order, painting a picture of a candidate ready to lead. This disparity in responses did not go unnoticed. Amazon was quick to acknowledge what it called an error in Alexa's programming, stating that the issue had been corrected. An Amazon spokesperson confirmed to Fox News Digital that Alexa would now respond with a neutral stance, regardless of the politician in question. But how did this happen in the first place? Amazon claims that all the discrepancies were the result of an unintentional error, not a deliberate bias. The company has teams dedicated to detecting and blocking content that violates its policies, ensuring that Alexa remains neutral. However, this incident raises broader concerns about the potential for hidden biases in technology that millions of people use every day. Could our virtual assistants be shaping our public opinion, even unintentionally? Could our virtual assistants be subtly shaping public opinion, even unintentionally? This story has sent shockwaves through both the political and tech worlds, especially with the US elections just around the corner. The timing could not be more critical. Vice President Kamala Harris currently holds a slim lead over Donald Trump in the recent Wall Street Journal poll, with 48% of public support compared to Trump's 47%. This makes any perceived bias in technology platforms all the more significant as the election season heats up. Amazon has reassured its users that it is taking steps to audit and improve Alexa systems continuously. But as we edge closer to the November election, this incident serves as a stark reminder of the power and the responsibility that comes with the technology we invite into our homes. Now moving on to a big story. there is just 1 week to go until a debate stage showdown between the two presidential candidates in the US election. The 90-minute debate will be hosted by ABC News on September 10th, and it is considered to be one of the most anticipated political events leading up to the 2024 election. Take a look at our next report as we show you the preparations underway at the National Constitutional Center in Philadelphia.
Yes, so next week, the eyes of the world will be on Philadelphia as former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris will debate here at the National Constitution Center on ABC News. As a backdrop of democracy and civility and the importance of the U.S. Constitution and the institutions that are supported by the Constitution, it was viewed, the Constitution Center was viewed as a perfect place to have this debate, the perfect backdrop in Philadelphia, where our country was founded. And so ABC News approached us as a partner that they've worked with in the past. We have played host to presidential primary debates in 2008 when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton debated here. And then again in 2020 when then President Trump and candidate Biden were a part of town halls that ABC hosted. So they approached us as just the perfect venue to host this special, important debate. Every 4 years, the American public get to exercise their responsibilities as citizens by voting in the general election. And we at the National Constitution Center understand that it's our responsibility to help educate citizens about those rights and responsibilities, about the importance of the Constitution as the thing that binds all citizens together in the U.S. And an informed citizenry is one that can really help advance democracy in a civil society.
Oh, I think it's a perfect place to have the debate, particularly we're talking about the notion of freedom. I think that's what this election is about. Freedom of choice, freedom to have control over your own, for women especially, over their own personal welfare. And so I think that it's going to be very interesting. And I think that Kamala Harris just needs to stay poised and rely on her prosecutorial DNA to have the ex-president lose his cool, and I think she'll be in good shape.
It is important to hear both candidates. I'm kind of a news junkie, so I am pretty up to date on what everybody has been saying all along. So I'm not sure that I'll hear anything new in the debate, but I think it'll be interesting to see how the interaction takes place during the debate.
Now it's time for our new segment, Poll Watch. With fewer than 10 weeks remaining from the US presidential polls, the race for the White House is becoming quite heated. Vice President Kamala Harris is maintaining a narrow lead nationally and a neck-to-neck battle in key swing states. So let's take a look at how the presidential contenders are doing in the polls today. In the national polls, Harris is leading with 49%, with Trump tailing behind at 46%. In the key swing state of Michigan, Harris is at 48%, while Trump stands at 46%. In Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada, both the candidates are at a tie, locked at 48% of public support. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, an absolutely key state, the Democratic candidate stands at 49% of public support, while Trump is at 48%. And finally, in the state of Wisconsin, Harris has a considerable 3-point lead with a 50% public support rating, while Trump is at 47%. As the election race gets into its final stretch, the polls are getting more and more tight. We'll keep bringing you the poll numbers every single day until the election. Now, it's time for us to get you some quick updates from America's political landscape that you might have missed. Kamala Harris has now proposed raising the capital gains tax rate for those earning $1 million or more to 28%. Earlier, Joe Biden had proposed a 39.9% rate in his fiscal 2025 budget. Harris's proposal for a lower top tax rate on capital gains suggests that she wants to appeal to a broad base of voters. Harris has also said that she plans to offer low and no interest loans to small businesses and also cut red tape that they face and expand access to venture capital. Former Republican Representative Liz Cheney has said that she will vote for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump. Cheney co-chaired the House investigation into the January 6, 2021 attack on Capitol Hill. She was in fact one of the 10 Republicans to vote to impeach Trump after the January 6 riots. Cheney has become a fierce Trump critic and was ousted in a 2020 Republican primary election in Wyoming. The Harris campaign has highlighted Cheney's endorsement and pointed to other Republicans who have backed Harris. Finally, the Biden administration is debating changes that would make it harder to lift sweeping asylum restrictions enacted in June. Biden's partial asylum ban included a deactivation trigger. This means the policy would be discontinued if the 7-day average of daily illegal border crossings fell below 1,500. Under the proposed changes, the asylum restrictions would only be deactivated if the 7-day average of unlawful border crossings stays below 1,500 for 28 days. Now that's all we have for you today on Race to the White House. See you again tomorrow.